I thought I wanted a second chance. To be honest, that's what drew me into books like Before the Coffee Gets Cold and The Midnight Library. It's this genuine yearning to see what a do over actually looks like. But after living inside these stories for a while, I realized that a warm hug from a book was actually the last thing I wanted. I've been on this massive time travel kick lately. I get this specific what if itch, just wondering about the version of my life where I made the right choice, or took a different job, or moved to a different country, or stayed in that one relationship. So I went into these specific books looking for stories that would let me visit those shadow lives that I never got to live and explore the high stakes of what happens when you actually disrupt the timeline. But as I started reading, I realized I hadn't just picked up time travel stories. I had actually entered the realm of healing fiction. These are beautiful contemplative books, but I think my disconnect happened because I went in with a really different kind of curiosity. I wasn't necessarily looking for a peaceful emotional resolution. I was actually looking for the structural what if. I wanted to see the messy physical consequences of a do over. And I realized these stories were written for a totally different kind of comfort. The first book that made me realize my expectations were mismatched was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. It's set in this tiny basement cafe in Tokyo, where if you sit in a specific chair, you can travel back in time to talk to someone from your past. The hook for me was the ritual. You have to finish your coffee before it gets cold, or you're stuck there. But there's also a catch. No matter what you do in the past, the reality you return to stays exactly the same. So it's a closed loop designed purely for closure. I've spent some time thinking about that cup of coffee. It's a safe way to grieve without the fear of breaking your actual life. But as I was reading, I found myself waiting for these rules to fail. I just wanted someone to spill the darn coffee, to let it go cold, and I wanted to see what happens when this whole ritual just breaks. The second book is The Midnight Library. Imagine a space between life and death where every book in the library is a version of the life you could have lived. The protagonist tries on all these lives like jackets and just jumps into different timelines where she's a famous musician in one and a scientist in another one. But the stakes are entirely internal. It's about finding a reason to want the life you already have. And while I appreciate that beauty in the book, I noticed that I just kept waiting for a mess to break out. I just wanted the shelves in that library to collapse or one of the books to catch on fire, but everything just stayed perfectly in place. One thing I want to note is that there are times where I actually do love a predictable story. And so if I'm reading a romance, for example, I want those tropes and those expected beats. But I feel like that's the contract I signed up for. When I pick up a book about time travel, though, my brain just automatically switches into a different mode. I start thinking about the butterfly effect. You know that idea that one tiny change could just ripple out and transform everything? And that every time I go back in time to fix a mistake, I could return to a world that is unrecognizable as a consequence. So I don't want a second chance that leaves the world intact. I want to see the shockwaves in the plot. These healing stories use time travel as a backdrop more for emotional reflection. But I was looking for the structural, messy consequences, the ripples of a do over, and how one tiny change might physically transform the entire world around a character. I've been seeing these books everywhere lately, and I totally get the appeal. In a chaotic world, there's something really comforting about a story that says there's no perfect life out there. And I think these stories actually changed my mind. I went in thinking a second chance was a tool to physically rewrite my mistakes, but I learned it's actually a way to just find peace with the first choice I made. They taught me that the point of a do-over isn't to change your world, it's to change how you feel about the one you already have. And it's such a lovely message. But it was just a case of mismatched expectations for me because I wasn't looking for a lesson on finding inner peace or accepting my lot in life. I just wanted to see the timeline catch fire and the world go haywire. But these books are really about the journey of coming to terms with the life you're already in. As a librarian, I love delving into stories and seeing how they fit into different aspects of our lives, even when they leave me a little restless or dissatisfied sometimes. If you read these books, let me know what you thought of them. I also need a high stakes time travel book that isn't afraid to break the rules. So please tell me in the comments what your favorite mind bending time travel book is. If these connections helped you learn something new or gave you a little spark today, liking the video and subscribing really helps a small creator like me. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me, and I will see you in the next chapter.